I'm your anchor Jay Stoyan, and you're in treat for a special edition today because we have legendary Canadian Rick Hansen on. Yes, Rick Hansen is going to be on the phone all the way from BC. He's going to be calling in, talking about his wonderful organization, the foundation, and his wonderful career. So you're in for a big treat. Do join us on Roku TV, a free subscription worldwide. More than 10 million subscribers in the US alone. We'd love for you to be a part of that. Again, it is a free subscription. Do go to our website, www.thedisabilitychannel.ca, for all of our current updates, including some great videos. And if you want to be a guest on our dial, please give us a call, jay@thedisabilitychannel.ca, or you can go to our contact page on our website. We would love to have you in our studio because we want to hear all about your story. We also want to announce that as of Monday, we will be debuting on Comcast in the Connecticut area, 8 p.m. with Accessible Daily Living, and then again on Wednesday with Health Talk Matters. One is an accessible modification show, and one is a personal support worker show. So we're very excited. I'd like to take a quick break, and we're going to be back with our guest, Rick Hansen. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back with the News Hour.
Hey guys, I'm Greg Westlake, captain of the Canadian National Sledge Hockey Team, here to talk to you real quickly about Bring Back the Game by TaylorMade and Adidas, brought to you by Talk Kierstad. Listen, everybody, whether you're in school, whatever sport you're playing, you want a teacher that has passion, somebody that shows up, looks you in the eye, and wants to make you better. Todd's that guy. In the US, 1 out of every 6 golfers gives it up due to some sort of mental or physical impairment. We think that's ridiculous. Todd's going to fix that number, and he's going to make it skyrocket. I'm missing both my feet. I saw today somebody that had a stroke, people that had mental difficulties. Todd worked with them all individually, gave them the perfect care that they needed, and made them better. I fully support this program. If he's doing an event near you, please come out, get on the course. Let's bring back the game.
Easy enough. Thank you, guys. You said up. I'm good. Okay. Hi. We've done this before. Yeah. Me and him, we work together. That's a play. That'll play. That'll play, boy. That will play. Oh, boy, God. Props on that. Gentlemen. You guys have yourselves a great day.
Please, thank you. See you again. Bye.
Hi, my name is Kim Giuliani.
My name's Steve Murray.
Hi, I'm Kathy Kennedy.
I'm a runner,
Bartender.
A realtor.
I injured my elbow playing golf.
Fractured my heel.
joint discomfort from running.
The podiatrist put me in a boot cast.
Given a product by my orthopedic surgeon
Tried other products before.
that didn't really work.
Didn't seem like the bone was healing very well.
They didn't provide the support that I needed.
And then I got introduced to the new bandage
The new bandage,
New bandage.
one day, and immediately when I put it on, my elbow felt better.
and it was so comfortable that it actually took the shock absorbing off my heel, even inside this cast.
The compression helped a lot with support. I was able to get through an entire 8 or 9 hour shift wearing the new bandage and not have any problems with it.
Ease of putting them on and keeping them in place was perfect. They stayed in place, they didn't move, they were comfortable, like a second skin.
A great experience for me. I felt blessed to be able to even have been able to have this product at this point in time when I really needed it.
Just provided immediate relief.
Would encourage you to try New Bandage.
Welcome back to News Hour. I'm your anchor Jay Stoyan, and on the show today, all the way calling in from BC, we have founder and CEO Rick Hansen from the Rick Hansen Foundation. Rick, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today.
Hey, thank you, Jay. I'm really looking forward to it.
This is wonderful. Just to let our people know, we are live right now on Facebook, so we would love to hear your comments. Please tune in. You can go to the NEWSHOUR Facebook page. You could go to the Disability Channel Facebook page, and I'm sure Rick and his team will have a link up on their page also. So do comment, because this is an honor, a real honor for our station to have Rick on. So Rick, For the people, I'm sure everybody in the world knows who you are, but for those maybe one or two people who are saying, who's Rick Hansen? Please give our viewers a little bit of the 101 Rick Hansen, and I'll just jump in if that's all right with you.
Sounds good, Jay. Well, as a normal, everyday rural kid in Canada, I was very involved in athletics, and I was really excited about maybe one day representing my country at the Olympic Games. And then at the age of 15, I was hitchhiking home from a fishing trip, and the driver crashed, and I was in the back of a pickup truck, and I broke my back and damaged my spinal cord, and the doctors told me I'd never walk again. So I was introduced to the world of disability, and of course, like many people, especially in the era of the 70s, I had a pretty negative stigma and perception, stereotype of what life would be like, what it would be like to have a disability, and had to kind of address that issue and ultimately return back to sport as a Paralympian and receive so much amazing support in the development of my athletic career that I decided to pay it forward by trying to change attitudes and remove barriers by showing the potential of people with disabilities by wheeling around the world in my chair, and also raising funds to help continue the barrier removal process after the tour was over.
Wow, now that's a true difference maker. Congratulations, Rick, and I'm sure it was very traumatic in your life at that time, and probably throughout the years it probably took a lot of getting used to. So congratulations on that. Like, that's just an inspiring story all on its own. But we were on your website, and you have so many fantastic programs of reaching out. So can we talk a little bit? You can tell us a little bit about the Angus Reid survey, please.
Yeah, well, there's a lot that's happened in the 30 years since the end of the Man in Motion tour. It's hard to believe that 30 years ago, to this period in time, I was actually making my way across Canada on the last leg of the world tour after having wheeled through 34 countries and 4 continents, and was completing the last of my 40,000 kilometers of wheeling, which is the circumference of the Earth at the equator distance, and of course it was probably about minus 25 degrees, and there were still lots of barriers out there everywhere I went, every country. Most countries didn't have human rights, legislation. Most people were still often thinking of disability as a bit of a charitable issue, and so I reflect back on that 30-year journey, and not just our journey, but the journey that over 1 billion people on the planet living with a disability today have been facing, and we've embedded human rights now in most countries. Legislation is either in process or done to create a minimum social safety net, and now all of a sudden aging baby boomers are about ready to join this community in so many ways. And so if we're going to accelerate progress for the next 30 years, it's important to know where people, their attitudes and perceptions are. And we decided to do an Angus Reid survey, an opinion poll, and ask Canadians across the country, thousands of them, what they thought about issues of awareness, people with disabilities, and accessibility. And the highlight results of that survey, which we released just on the International Day of the Disabled a couple weeks ago, the UN's Day of the Disabled, we found that Canadians have come along with us, in that over 92% of Canadians believe that it is a human right for people with disabilities to have access and to be included in all aspects of society. They also believe that people with disabilities face still a lot of barriers out there to inclusion. The built environment, transportation, and employment being three of the biggest ones. They also underscored the prevalence of disability. They don't really see the number of people with disabilities, and that's probably because of the fragmentation in the community by clinical diagnosis or disease orientation or interest groups of the plethora of important issues that need to be addressed. And so it doesn't ladder up to be perceived as a huge deal that it really is. And that makes us realize we've got some work to do in the area of awareness, and keep elevating the attention and bring people together on that central thrust. And we also found that Canadians, while they believed it was a human right, they perhaps thought it might be justifiable not to move, all the way to accessibility because of the costs of, modifying the built environment, or the costs of accommodation for employment, or perhaps even the risk of employing a person with a disability. So we found that there's a lot of urban myths out there, old industrial age stereotypes that probably need a lot of education in order to deal with the fact that there's over 400,000 people, who are of employable age who are unemployed, and half of them have a post-secondary education degree, and so that shows we still have some big gaps to overcome. And lastly, we polled them about the need for perhaps a more standardized professional assessment of where accessibility is, a certification program that would actually start the entry point at a bronze category for building code and legislation, but encourage innovation to go beyond, because if we're going to really create excellence and liberate economic and cultural potential, we have to really get people to think about maybe silver or gold or platinum levels of innovation, and make that standard as relevant in Canada as it is in the States, and perhaps in China and Europe. And so those are the frontier objectives that Canadians think that would be very helpful, because they want to know, how are we on the journey to accessibility?
Well, I think those are three great major talking points. And if I can just follow up with two of them. When you said 92% of Canada is on board, how do you compare that to the other countries around the world that you travel? Because obviously, because you're so entrenched in Canada, I'm sure it's not too hard to get people on board, or maybe it is. But what about the other countries? And number two, do you think it's a good idea, or the results of a good idea is to have somebody who is actually disabled when they're looking into legislative policy versus somebody who's able?
Yeah, first of all, the first question is a huge one, and I get asked this everywhere I go, no matter what country, what city or community, whether it's a civic leader, perhaps a big city mayor, or whether it's a corporate leader, or a person who's a leader of a not-for-profit organization or an advocate for the disabled. Is like, where are we on the journey towards full accessibility and inclusion? And of course, the sort of the unfortunate part about it at this point is there's not a lot of reliable metrics that create an objective measurement that give us credibility when we are able to say it. So most of the answers are intuitive, subjective answers that may not be that reliable. And I think what that calls for, and what the United Nations and I think a lot of advocates who really are addressing this issue are starting to realize that we need some real standardized metrics to measure accessibility and inclusion, to start to actually measure up how countries are doing relevant to their approach towards this topic, and how municipalities and also how corporate and other agencies are doing. And so I think that, and even how the public is responding in the areas of awareness and attitudes. And so this is the next frontier of I think practical solutions that give us benchmarks, would be wonderful to have an accessibility and inclusion index, or have a number of big agencies that deal with index, like the Global Cities Index, and ask them to include not just safety or earthquake proof or green considerations for energy efficiency, but what about people and accessibility, and have metrics that are standardized so that we can actually compare and see. And then also, when we see the ones that have broken through and have really made progress, it's going to inspire a lot of other communities and nations to follow suit, and then the populace, who are going to become largely voters as boomers enter this field, can actually hold political leaders accountable, and also they can hold businesses accountable by making choices and going to places that have already kind of crossed the chasm and become inclusive.
Wow. And speaking about the accessibility, there was a show on before ours called Accessible Daily Living, and their whole focus is legislative standards and policies within the commercial or residential places, or people who have to modify their homes. And I think you might be a little, or your organization, like the foundation, might be a little interested in these people. So I would love to sort of just make you aware of them, and it's up to you if you'd like to connect with them. But I just wanted to bring that up because what you're saying is so important. Let's move a little bit ahead now, and I know because you have so many great programs. Let's talk a little bit about the Access for All, and I know it's Canadians' 150th anniversary, so I'm sure there's lots of great details within that program.
Well, Jay, Canada in 1982 brought home its own constitution, from the Commonwealth, and this is sort of when our country decided that that we really needed to sort of embed our own constitution, our charter as a nation, rights and freedoms, and to really make a statement. And in 1982, we were one of the only countries in the world that, in its constitutional framework, actually referenced people with disabilities and said that we want people with disabilities to have equal rights and opportunities. And that's a big statement. But then we'd had a long way to go, and a lot of work had to be done. And there's still, even to this day, our federal minister responsible for disability, Carla Quattro, is now in consultation to ensure that the federal government is going to adopt a comprehensive federal legislative framework. And there's a wonderful group of champions in the barrier-free Canada movement that are advocating for the kind of reflection from the community that legislation should provide. And interestingly, we're about ready to enter into Canada's 150th birthday next year in 2017, and so what better way to celebrate a birthday of a nation that's young and emerging, and by at one level having a really great legislative framework and that social safety net that really ensures that people don't have a lot of choice when they respond to this issue, that they need to, because this is the Canada that we view as accessible and inclusive. But then also we need to also make sure that the government doesn't do this alone, and that we don't just stop at minimum standards, and that today's standards become tomorrow's archaic perhaps handicaps, because everything's changing and people's attitudes, perceptions, technology, innovation, and we want to keep driving forward and not see it just as an obligation, but as an opportunity. And so that means as we celebrate Canada's 150th birthday, we want to create a framework, an Access for All framework, where the over 4 million Canadians and people that represent them, the 1 in 7 number, can actually come together, as well as government and private sector and community, and come together to punctuate that awareness is a big deal, and that attitudes can be and should be positive and normalized. And then lastly, that we can keep pounding out barriers, especially in the built environment, the places and spaces that people live, work, and play. And that means that if we're going to really amp this up, we want to engage communities and especially youth, because it's a long journey to get to that ultimate goal. And next generation needs to, when they think of inclusivity, they really need to think that people with disabilities are part of that community of a diverse Canada, and not to forget it, and to recognize it's the world's largest minority. And so they can become not only oriented towards awareness and great attitudes, but they can actually be champions of change by finding barriers in their schools or in their communities, and then find solutions by working with champions to create great innovative solutions, and then apply to our foundation for barrier buster grants, so we can give up to $30,000 per application to help make a front entrance to a school completely accessible, or put some braille signage so that that people have wayfinding opportunities in a better way if they have blindness or other visual challenges, or safety equipment for people who are deaf, visually challenged, or those who have mobility problems, and so they can look at parks and playgrounds or community facilities and really amp up the level of awareness, and ultimately their exposure to this will help them in good stead as they become students in universities or colleges, or eventually community leaders or corporate leaders, and it becomes a normal thing. Of course, we have to make sure, but they also have tools to think about how they can actually make change, and they don't fear it, they actually normalize it. So we think that this is a great way to leave a birthday present for Canada next year, and then annualize it. So we're measuring progress, we're incenting people to find barriers and remove them, and ultimately work beyond just government dealing with this problem. It's all of our problem, and more importantly, it's all of our opportunity.
Well, if we can further support that, please let us know, and we will do all we can on our social media feeds, because it's such a wonderful project and endeavor that I congratulate that. I know you're a busy man, so I won't keep you too much longer. Just maybe two more questions, and these are a little bit more heartfelt, a little bit more personal. I know everybody probably out there obviously knows Rick Hansen and obviously knew Terry Fox back in the day. Can you share us a little bit of any type of feelings you might have between those, your two relationships, two Canadian icons? Just sort of something to share with our people, our viewers.
Well, I think the most important thing is, it was a real privilege to be able to know Terry, and he was struggling after he lost his leg to cancer, wondering, he was an athlete, played basketball before, and wondering, what possibilities might exist. And so a friend, introduced me to his name and number, and I called him up and recruited him to our wheelchair basketball team, and it had a huge impact on Terry, because there were so many athletes there who had way more, quote, disabling conditions, but they showed nothing but great attitudes and ability. And I thought he responded beautifully by getting back into the sport, and so both of us were mentored by an amazing Canadian hero in my mind, and no one would know his name. His name was Stan Strong. He was the manager of our wheelchair basketball team, and he had a spinal cord injury, but he just gave of himself to help a group of athletes achieve their goals and dreams, and didn't ask anything in return. He created that sense of social responsibility in our team culture, and Terry and myself both were inspired to pay it forward in our own ways. And Terry was a great friend. He inspired me deeply, and in a lot of ways, but in particular to be able to take a dream of wheeling around the world as a challenge and make it a purpose, and use the experiences that I saw as a Paralympian around the world, and seeing the barriers, and use that as a connection between athletic talent, physical challenge, and purpose. And I guess when I think about the one thing to reflect on it, if you ever came into that wheelchair basketball team, or if we were in a classroom, in school, you would have never been able to pick Terry out of that class as someone extraordinary. You wouldn't have been able to pick me out of that class, except maybe that I was in a wheelchair. And so, we all have ability, and we all have hopes and dreams, and we all have things we care about where we know that that's not right. We know that there's a problem, and rather than whine about it and just complain, Stan Strong taught Terry and I that we all had some level of power to be able to do something about it, and to reach out and try something ourselves, or to be part of a team of others who are doing exceptional work, and just help them, because none of us could have accomplished anything in our lives without an amazing team. And so if we all take that sense of commitment and responsibility, just imagine what will happen over the next 30 years as we continue to reach that dream that I was chasing all those years ago and still am today.
Wow. On the line we have Rick Hansen, the founder and CEO of the Rick Hansen Foundation. Rick, I was going to say, before I let you go, can you just leave us with a powerful message, but I think you just did. So to that note, I want to thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to be with us on the Disability Channel. If people do want to reach more, learn more about Rick Hansen or yourself, Rick, where could they go?
Yeah, they can look us up at rickhansen.com and come onto our foundation website. Look into our Access for All program, and if they can find barriers, and reach out, make applications. Gosh, we'd love to help try to support and keep moving things forward. And I guess I'd like to close by thanking you, Jay, and of course everyone at the Disability Channel, because we really need to come together as a community, and the best way to do that is share stories, and then find those common platforms where we can show the weight of this incredible community and get there faster.
Wow, I really appreciate it, Rick, and thank you for the kind words. It's much appreciated. Our door is always open. If we can further support your causes and your programs, please do not hesitate to ask, because we are here to serve Canada and the world just like yourself.
Right on. Well, keep up the great work, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Rick. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk soon.
All the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Alrighty, what a treat that was. We had on Rick Hansen, the CEO and founder of the Rick Hansen Foundation. He just shared so many great thoughts and programs and his experiences and his life with us. So we're very honored to have Rick Hansen on our show today, the NEWSHOUR. Before I do let you go, he passed on a personal, powerful message that everybody has ability. Just got to get out there and try it. Do find us live on Facebook. I want to thank all the people out there for commenting, for watching, for supporting. It's a new platform for us. We're still trying to perfect it, step at a time. We want to thank the Accessible Daily Living and John Groen today with his fabulous guests, all talking about brain injury. You can find us on Roku TV. It's a free subscription worldwide. You can also find us on Comcast in Connecticut, debuting this coming Monday at 8 o'clock with Accessible Daily Living, and again followed up on Wednesday at 8 p.m. We're going to try and get 5 days a week, and we're going to try and spread the Disability Channel right across America into every state and into every Comcast station. And we're also working very hard on doing the same here in Canada. So I want to thank all of our viewers for tuning in. If you want to find out more information about our channel, you can go to our website, www.thedisabilitychannel. It is the Christmas season, so take care, be safe, and no slips and falls. Again, we'll see you next time on a NEWSHOUR. I'm your anchor, Jay Stoyan.